Now, Africa has the opportunity to unlock some $3 trillion from the ocean economy. That's according to African Oceans Council. Africa is highly dependent on the ocean for trade, with about 90% of all imports and exports for the continent conducted through ports along the coast. Now, the Council says this is a great opportunity to change economies on the continent and bolster global economic participation. To unpack this, we're joined by the CEO of the African Oceans Council, Commander Tsietsi Mokhele. Tsietsi, welcome again to Newzroom Afrika. My first question around this would be, for someone who's not familiar with the term, what are we talking about when we say the oceans economy?
Thank you very much, Dr. And to you and the viewers. This is a subject of quite a big interest globally. We've been lagging behind in the conversations around the expansion of the concept. It started off initially, it was maritime economy, means that those are industries that are dependent on the usage of the ocean and the waterways, either in trade or for resources or as a space in which they do business or trade, which is using that as a medium for transportation from one end to the other, what we call maritime trade. And then lastly, there are resources in the ocean, like fish, for an example, offshore oil and gas, minerals mining in the deep sea. So all of these things that are dependent or are located in the ocean, that's what we mean by maritime.
It places South Africa in a great opportunity because, of course, we do have ports all around our country, whether you're looking at Cape Town or Durban. So there's a great opportunity here. But is there investment already coming in to try and bolster this particular industry?
South Africa was fortunate in the sense that by 2014, when the Operation Pakisa Oceans Economy was launched by the president in 2014 and then in the State of the Nation in 2015, we had done the total scoping of that industry. And by that time, the sector was contributing 56 billion rands to GDP. But through the study that was done and then validated by McKinsey International, it showed that if we are well organized, we draw in investments, we could be adding 177 billion rands on top of the 56 billion rands that was already being contributed by that industry. And on the job side, it worked out that there would be about 880,000 jobs linked to this industry across the 9 subsectors. So that was a validated business case. And 2-3 years after that, the industry had been able to draw in investments to the tune of about 50 billion. So it showed its own case that it actually can help to grow the GDP of the country and create more employment.
Now, it's been 10 years since the national government launched Operation Pakisa and also punting the oceans economy through it. Are we anywhere near that 177 billion rand to the SA economy and the creation of close to 1 billion jobs by 2033?
No, there was a lag. One of the missteps we did in planning the whole system is that at the time, the fiscus in the country looked very strong. It had survived the 2008 financial crisis. So many of the plans were predicated on being ignited by public finance. And therefore, there was very little effort to tap directly into the financial and capital markets to augment what the state cannot provide for. So as soon as the state went into difficulties, as you know, that the fiscus has been under pressure, we lost a very good 8 years of finding out that but basically the state cannot completely finance the opportunity that is out there. And this was not only the case for South Africa, it was the case for Africa as a whole. Hence, we ended up saying, in the next phase of implementation, we need to accelerate the infusion of private capital and private finance into the maritime economy.
And that's exactly what I want to get into, the private sector, the private finance, because capital injections like that could boost the ocean's economy. Is there an exact sweet spot, a number that you're looking for in order to get things hurried up?
Yes, at least for the continental market, we're looking at, there's a baseline. Most people are arguing the issues that we're putting forward. I'm saying to them, if you've got an unproductive sector with huge leakages, your baseline is not a fundamental line that you should be obsessed with. You should be obsessed with when I've done my job and done it well, where will it put me? And then we've got a sweet spot per sector, because each sector is different. I'll come to aquaculture. Africa used to contribute to fishing at sea, what we call wild capture. Africa was sitting at 12% of contribution of fish sector as a contribution to GDP. However, fish is depleting at sea. An alternative market has emerged that we call aquaculture, which is now fish that is now being farmed, artificially farmed in the tanks, on land and at sea. It's called aquaculture. Aquaculture has overtaken fish that is caught in the wild. Africa is now sitting at less than 2%, at about 1.9%, where in the fisheries market we're at 12%. So to recapture our market share, we need to move from 2 to 12. So there's a shortfall of $12 billion throughout the African aquaculture to secure food security and to make sure that the protein source, which is fisheries food for the continent is food secure. So that is just one industry that is growing at about 12 to 23%. I mean, 12 to 23%, that's a compelling case. That is just the fisheries sector, 12 billion shortfall in the investment gap.
The money
so
is
I can come
one
into
thing,
the
but
other subsectors.
When you look at the capacity, Tsietsi, looking at whether we have enough skilled seafarers in the country, the scientists that we need, the shipbuilders, the repairers, the engineers, the guys in logistics, do we have enough capacity on the continent to feed into the great opportunity that is the ocean economy?
And this is exactly the conversation. And you look globally, it is not only the governments that are now investing into skills and education. What we did as a mistake, we stayed with an old model where it was dependent on how many people the states are able to pass through. But the labor market in maritime has become a global labor market. So we are creating the one in Africa. We're at the market formation stage where private money starts flowing into the skilling of our people so that the youth dividend of Africa becomes an actual dividend only when they're skilled. So one of the platforms we've created is a platform of mobilizing financial resources to upskill the African youth and the African labor to meet the future demand.
As the Africa's Oceans Council, you will be playing host this month in Durban to get more capital into the country around the oceans economy. What are you hoping to achieve with the indaba that's coming up?
At the indaba, we're hoping to achieve two things. One is that we're hoping to make up for the misstep that we've had in Africa of just being reliant on the public finances. We have been able to manage, for an example, to create a pipeline that we're socializing the private investors with. That pipeline, as we are sitting today, is sitting at about $15 billion of money that is required by projects. And these projects, we need to assist them to be socialized with the market, facilitate the transaction, and make sure that they secure the investment that they require. So that is our first ambition of pushing through the projects. On the other side is the creation of a competitive market by making sure that we create an ecosystem of bringing the investors, the technology players, the policy makers, and the business people, so that in one ecosystem, not only do they discuss, but they're also able to take things from ideation all the way through to implementation of projects.
So all right, that was the CEO of the African Oceans Council, Commander Tsietsi Mokhele, talking to us about the oceans economy.